Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The future already knows who you are. And so we are creatures that wonder about reality and we wonder about it from the past to the future. But how many people wonder from the future to the past? What is moving? We think about the movement of all phenomena from the past to the future, but what about the future towards the past? I will tell you, in my youth, I heard the concept of past lives. And this concept it was engaging, but because the mind was mysterious and the soul, like it was as if like the body was known, the mind was semi-known, semi-unknown, and the soul was pure unknown. And so the soul is not something the person can touch. It's not an object-based relationship. The unknown is not an object. And it's not neither a subject, but few people realize it's not a subject. So this is why when we look at the future and how we move through it, it's through the ideas. It's literally our past is designing how the future is going to remember how we walked. Pretty much how we are alive now is designing our future memories. We are sculpting our future memories in accordance to how we live. Now, I thought about it in a very unique way where I thought, okay, let's give dimensions to the moment and see these dimensions moving as if like two rivers of different color water um, being meshed together. Technically, they are neither separate, they are neither unified. So it feels like the mind is living a life while the body is, but the mind's life seems to be much quicker, much faster, much high speed, in the sense that before the body moves, the mind can test out its probabilities in the inner realm. These probabilities are so important. People want to know what thinking is. There's no such, I don't like the word thought, thinking, and considering that we're a thought. But I would tell you that what it is conscious discourse with the self of selves. It is not a fragmentation of the psyche. It is, everybody's psyche is fragmented because the world has to be categorized to be spoken about, you know. And if we say we are a pure experiential being, how do you cut up a ball of energy? It's like you can't. It's not like cake, you know. When it comes to knowledge of energy, as energy is defined as something that cannot be created or destroyed but changes from one form to another, for any being to be conscious as an energetic being, it is an undestroyable and uncreatable sight. You see, the idea of me, it can leave the moment my attention goes from it. That means somebody calls my name, my attention goes there. Somebody calls a name that I don't associate with, it's as if my head doesn't turn, you know. But if I had associated with that other name, my head would have turned, you know. I feel that these two rivers of different colors, imagine, if we were to look at, I feel the mind is coming from the future to the past because it's so unconditional and instant in its expression. The body is going from the past to the future. And sometimes, and of course, guys, I'm theorizing this. I'm saying this in the sense that when I think about myself as a body, as a physical being, it's based on the senses. But when I ask myself what is moving the senses, And with what intelligence, that means it's like something's happening in the moment and the person's looking at the karma of the whole moment to be like, okay, why is this happening to me? Why am I perceiving this? Why has these forms, these shapes, these meanings come to my eyes now? And this may be a bit bold of me to say, but I feel somebody has to. We are not able to communicate to our past self because we identify in accordance to it, but we can communicate with our future self. Now, the idea of the future self, it's not that like there was a version of you individually in the past, and there's going to be an individual version of you in the future. That is true, but I'm saying overall, if we wanted to somehow fast forward this film of life, I feel there will occur an event. It has already occurred, but I'm for the sake of speech here, we have to say that today we are individual. Tomorrow we will be individual, but the tomorrow beyond time we never could be. You see, the species will access the central sun, the central mind of the universal sector. We're just, I will tell you, imagine Wheel of Fortune, we're like one of the colors on that wheel. But once we realize the center of the wheel never moves, the center of the wheel of karma has never moved, and it is the source of the movement. So whoever is alive in a cyclical realm, all you require is to find the center of your moment. And for those beings that they require objects and subjects to be true, to be a true phenomena in the moment, there is no center. That means objects, you will think they're centralized into subjectivity, you're going to go realize they're codependent. That means when man has come to wonder about if subjects were here first or objects were here first, we cannot know. And it's remarkable. It's one of the most beautiful mysteries of this world. Did the objective evolution take place first or the subjective evolution? Did man did man create his mind, or did man discover his mind? Because if we discovered our mind, it is collective. If we invented it, it's individual. If we created it. Based on how lonely the person is, their truth is going to be adjusted by that. If the person is not comfortable alone, they will not accept solo truths. That means if you're a person who you've been around people your whole life, your comfort is more collective. That means some people think better in groups. And then there's some people who actually, when they go into the group, their inner realms are so different or deviated from the group that they have no choice but to go alone. Now, the whole point of me declaring these talks for mystics, for mystical intent inclined people, mysticism is the last refuge, the last stronghold of the unknown. It is the human intimacy prior to a relationship to any god or higher power or higher value. I have had moments where this was, I would say, before 2015 specifically, before 2016, I would say. From 2014 and 16, I had a relationship with my inner realms ideologically. That means don't think that even though I say language can't contain truth, it doesn't mean that language doesn't echo in higher dimensions as worlds. It does. That means the mind is responsible for everything it has done. The body is responsible also for everything that's done. What does that mean? That means think as if you fell from a bike and you got a scar on your knee. That scar, for example, imagine continues with you till today. Now, everything the mind has generated is in an imprint archive. This archive, some people, Carl Jung was incredibly genius, and he called it, in some sense, the collective unconscious. Now, as you access the collective unconscious, here's the thing. Sometimes the key has to fit the keyhole. What that means is if you're trying to open a collective door individually, oh, that's adorable, keep trying. But if you want to try a collective door collectively, you see, it's as if there is this notion I call divine royalty. And it's the remembrance of the timeless for the timeless. We're honestly bees in an unupdated beehive suddenly attaining consciousness. Now these bees are like, yo, should I help build the beehive or should I like go do what I want? Not realizing that the bee is designed to build the beehive. You know, just like bees are designed to build the beehive, human beings are designed to build interstellar cities, interstellar sky cities. That means we are doing the same thing as the bees are, but we're doing it with communication and information. We are like a bee that goes from one view of information, one view of the world to the other view of the world, and each event of the moment we sit on, we're extracting meaning and value from it. I would say in 2014 to 16, I did work with internal archetypes outside, like invisible, a sense of an invisible other, but that was only necessary for a certain phase until I began to realize it's all the permission of the collective self that is here. We're sandwiched between an unknown moment of collectivity and a known moment of collectivity. I remember in 2013, I was very like I was the most Tibetan Buddhist Persian guy on the planet, I think. And uh, I remember I had read on this website, I had had a dream where in the dream I had seen something frightening, or I would say not frightening, alarming in regards to image, a bit chaotic. So I remember I had gone to this website and I searched, how do I communicate with my guardian angels? It was like such a, you know, playful moment. At the time, I was super seriously searching it, but now when I look back at it, you know, sometimes the person looks back at their own life and they're like, oh my God, who's this fool that's been stumbling around the whole time? I remember I sat on this table. I had read on this website forum that the person's like, you got to go sit down and say, I am ready to meet my guardian angels now, right? And I was like this, kind of like very simple, preferenceless person, just going with the flow. And I remember I sit down at this house, my father's house. I was at the dinner table. There was nobody there. I sit at the dinner table, and uh, what do I say? I say the thing that in the sentence on I had read in the forum where the guys like say, I am ready to meet my guardian angels now. And with the same, you can say, uh, uh, glare in the eyes of a child who sees, for example, Santa Claus, or believes in something that is purely unknown. You know, before the child knows it's playing the game of belief or disbelief. Like before you know who someone is, you're believing who they are, or you're lying to yourself who they are. You know. So I remember I say that very intent, like with a lot of focus. Just I was like, okay, I'm ready to meet my guardian angels now. Very direct. And I remember I feel it was like an empty. There was nobody there. It was just me at the dinner table. And then I suddenly felt three, like 3 meter statues in my inner realms. None of it had visuals. It wasn't visuals, but I felt as if three um uh uh 3 meter kind of like presences walked in the room. You know how like if it, I remember being a kid, and when someone much bigger than me would walk in the room, it would translate as a feeling. You know, so this was a moment where it didn't have imagery, but there was a translation of a feeling, and there was this three presences. You know, and I remember I was like, no way! Like it was like blowing my mind. It was like this cool, precious, synchronistic time, new age time. And I remember I that was one time I got close to establishing a relationship, but then in my own writings to myself, I wrote that I kind of got this insight that if I see a face in the unknown, it makes no sense. So you see, it does make sense in front of your eyes to see individual object-based beings, but to actually see a picture behind your eyes and think that one picture is the owner of everything else behind your eyes, it's as if like the tip of the iceberg is making us forget the whole iceberg is there. And I will tell you, this observable universe is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more and so many ways that human beings can live that is inaccessible to us because we are contained in a linguistic position. And once this linguistic position shakes in the inner realms, the outer realms have authorization to happen in a different way. There's a man named Sadhguru. I am fond of his lectures. You know, he used this metaphor, which was a great metaphor and analogy. He said that he was speaking about karma, and he was speaking about how it's like you can be a ship in the ocean, but if you don't take out the way the anchor is fallen, the ship is just going to go into circles. So the ship has to find a way to unanchor itself from its ideological acceptance of everything. And so that was the thing. If you're anchored into something specific, for example, a lot of, I would say, yogis and non-dual people are most likely looking at me and they're like, Mr. Within, you know, how are you talking about non-duality when you're anchored into this whole speaking thing you're doing? And I'll tell you, because I realize my work is inseparable from the world's work. So anytime the world is working, I am working. Anytime I'm alive, life is here, in my eyes, at least. My point is, you can be selfless and completely live as a self in this world. The selflessness has to do with space and how much you realize your intelligence is space. Your awareness, your mind is space. I'm telling you, people don't realize this. Your mind for the experiencer comes across as space. What's in the mind, in the space, is the matter, the content, and conception. This is why I'm saying there's an inner realm, because we can visualize. If we couldn't visualize something, I would say, all right, there is no additional room where reality is moving in, but there is. The inner realm is the most important discovery of our time. Because we had the idea of an inner self. The idea of the inner self was there, but the inner realm, people were scared to speak about it. And it's tragic, because I'll tell you, it's like I totally empathize with all those metaphysical minded people, because they are realizing the potential surpasses the kinetic display. That from the beginning of the beginning, there has been energy here. Energy is, intelligence is, like, there needs to be mindhood before bodyhood. You know why? Because what's the body for? You ask yourself, any person asks this from themselves, they should ask, like, what is my existence for? And you see, ta-da, free will. You have free will to move it. You're here to pilot your attention, not to blind yourself with beliefs that never could be yours. I will tell you, I have tried believing in things, and I have tried disbelieving in things, but the power of nature is that it goes forth raw into experience. That whatever you say, whatever you conclude. You know how many days I have sat on this earth wondering about where it is, only to realize that my eyes had to open for it to exist to me. It is chaotic. This world is interesting, but that interest sometimes oscillates through chaos. And an advanced civilization, an advanced civilization will look at chaos and smile, will look at order, smile, will look at the future, it will smile, look at the past, it will smile. Why? Because it has advanced beyond all. You see, we are not trying to become gods. We are trying to become the inconceivable. There's this poet Rumi. He says, I died from 700 years ago, the Sufi mystic poet. He says, I died as a mineral, and I became a plant. I died as a plant, and I rose to animal. Sorry, well, let me see if I can catch the rhythm of the poem again. I died as a mineral, and I became a plant. I died as a plant, and I rose to animal. I died as an animal, and I was man. When was I less by dying? Why should I fear death? I shall die once more to soar with angels blessed, but even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has conceived. That's the point. That means beyond the human framework, there is another individual life. But you can say beyond Indraloka, as one enters the abode of truth, you are no longer the guest of this world, you become the host. So I could tell you that my mind in my youth felt like a guest, as if, like, you're invited to a party. You're the guest, it's not your place, it's like you have entered the world pretty much. Now, the thing is with this earth is that based on how the person lives and how much they care for it sincerely, the inner realms really activate, or you see beyond them. I can tell you my attention is not living the life of an object. My attention is living the life of the whole moment where all objective content is found. That's the thing. The future is a realization. It's all being one moment. So what's technically happening is there is a dimension of existence. So I want every person who's listening, just look at this for yourself. There is a dimension of existence. That means we continuously exist physically, but there's also a dimension of experience simultaneously. Think of these as two parallel lines, or think of it as two people racing. So the dimension of experience is changing quicker than the dimension of existence. That means our existence is like this slow, like the body, pretty much what happens is the body's metabolism, pretty much your body is creating itself more than it's letting itself be destroyed by the forces of nature. But as the person gets older, the ability for the body to recreate itself diminishes. So the battery percentage of life decreases, of course. This is why it's so important to find your great work early on. So, experientially, if we define ourselves as an experiential entity, there is time, there's space time, there is the fullness of reality, there is the mysteries of the dream state. We are awake, we dream, and then there's absence. Deep sleep is one of the most mysterious things. It's like the person thinking to themselves, like, are you telling me pretty much as a human being every day we shut down for some time and then the computer restarts again? And it shuts down, restarts, shuts down, restarts. So that's the experiential dimension. So we are actually experiencing life through three modes, but existing in one mode. So the suffering is generated out of the relationship of the experience with existence. That means if you wonder about yourself, about your experiences in this life, instantly you will realize you're an intelligent mind in the moment. But if you wonder about how things are existing, existence doesn't need a mind to exist. In a sense of outer realm existence, not inner realm existence. Like a subject needs a mind to exist, but an object, there were objects before my mind was conceivable. When I say the future already knows who you are, this may sound strange, guys, but every time I listen to my talks, any of them, it doesn't matter which one, I listen to them, I feel literally I gave the talk like a moment ago. It feels that way to me, all of them. I know, even I remember the exact moment, but the feeling, I'm telling you, you can selflessly speak, but that selfless speech has no owner, and the moment it has no owner, it has no agenda. Nature is chilling and advancing at the same time, but human beings, they're freaking out and trying to advance at the same time. We're freaking out over our own identification with the world. It's hilarious. Like when you see people who are stressed and suffering, I'm like, whoa. I mean, physical pain, that's not unavoidable, by the way. Just to get this straight here and make sure I make this clear. Guys, outer realm suffering, you can't act like a yogi. That means if a house is on fire, get out of the house. Do you know? If if there's a tsunami coming, get out of the way. The outer realms are very crucial to actually learn from. I'm always a student of my attention is a student of the outer realms. That means if somebody asks Mr. Within, do you have a teacher? I'll be like, no, my attention is like literally it just roams and updates and pilots. That's it. It's like the student teacher is only there when you think you're separated from the cosmic event. When you realize you're inseparable from the cosmic event, fear cannot register. Not like inner ideological fear. Outer fear is there. If like you see a grizzly bear, yeah, it's like that's definitely gonna have an impact on the nervous system. You know, this is what I noticed really, and it's kind of the tragedy of, I guess, our evolutionary design. I see it in a lot of women. You know, that they want to get. Okay, I'll tell you the situation. Don't be in a relationship with a person that doesn't see that you exist to yourself. That means there are people who care how somebody exists, and then there's some people who care how somebody also exists to themselves. What does that mean? That means this is why dishonor was retaliated. This is why back in the day, if someone was dishonored, it was as if it's like the both person would draw arms. They would, in some sense, raise their swords and be like, okay, this event is taking place. And so that's the thing. That's the most crucial thing about learning to pilot here. Rome wasn't built in a day, but the name Rome was. The inner realms can be built instantly. The outer realms take time. You can say Edison was looking at the light bulb in his inner realms way before he brought it in the outer realms. Even Nikola Tesla, who created the AC motor, which is the gift he bestowed modern civilization. Edison, and I don't know how many people know this, but Edison and Tesla had beef. And Edison had the direct, what is it, DC? And what do you call it? Tesla had the AC motor. And Tesla was in a park. He gets a vision. He's like feeding birds and making notes on his notebook or something, and suddenly he gets a vision. He gets a sorry, he doesn't have a notebook. He gets a stick and he draws the vision of the patent of the AC motor on the dirt with a stick. That is pure inner realm. That Nikola Tesla was one of, in my books, he was a very advanced pilot. He was a being that in a very advanced way knew how to pilot here, even though in the outer realms he was a bit awkward. I'll tell you this. It's pretty much like, uh, I don't know, a blind relationship is not a good relationship. If people cannot see each other's minds, if like two people are existing with one another and one of them doesn't see the other as a mind with a space, a mind that could get disturbed, a mind with a certain rhythm, then the other just treats the other as an object, you know? And that's an issue where it's just natural in the species. We started off as objects through an objective evolution. Now we have gone through a subjective evolution. So now more than ever, if we act violent, what's the point of us evolving 4 billion years then? You know, if we don't use these minds that we have and we just live a sort of empty physical life, it's what's the point of evolving this far then? What's the point of having an advanced probability generating system behind your eyes? This has to be utilized. We have to start living as minds. And the way this can happen is that genius is shy. There's so many genius ideas on this planet, but the nature of the human being is that unless it feels it has the perfect audience, it doesn't give the perfect talk. So unless the person sees every moment is the perfect audience, then they would, in some sense. Speak as they see. There's this story, that whole point about relationships. It's going to be kind of, this is going to suggest the difference between outer realm fear and inner realm fear. The inner realms and outer realms. There's this very religious person. This religious person realizes a flood is coming. Some sort of messed up tsunami. And the person, what he does is he suddenly gets a vision and he makes a prayer and he's like, God, come to me, protect me. And so in the dream, a voice appears in a light or something, and the voice and light says, God is with you. Trust life. God is with you. God will assist you. And the person opens his eyes after the dream, and suddenly he opens his door and he sees everybody's evacuating. And the neighbors are like, hey man, get out. Get out of the house. What are you doing still around? Pack your stuff and let's get out of here. And the person's like, no, God is with me. And everybody evacuates. The person's alone, and the person, let's say they're in a building or something, like a couple floor building, and the storm comes and the flood comes and the person has to evacuate the first floor. The person goes to the second floor, goes to the top of the, excuse me, goes to the top of the thing, and suddenly a boat comes and says, hey, you know on the second floor, let's say, the water keeps rising up, and a boat comes and says, what are you doing? Get on the boat. And the guy's like, no, God's with me. Go, you people, go. God's with me. you know and what happens is that the guy goes in the toppest part of the building and the water levels are rising or something, whatever. Let's say it's a story. A helicopter comes and says to the guy, come, what are you doing? How are you still here? And the guy's like, no, I don't want to come. And the helicopter evacuates like, this makes no sense. And there's no choice. The helicopter has to leave and the water levels rise and the person dies. In the story, the person dies and he goes to heaven. And he goes to heaven and God is there. And the person's like, God, why didn't you help me? I thought you were with me. And God's like, are you kidding me? I helped you. I came to you 3 times trying to help you, but you chose not to see me. And that's the difference. That it's not that divinity is not accessible. It is man that has forgotten that it's the most unique thing is how we're just here, how the moment appears. It's like when I was younger, wild Pokemon would appear. Now it's like a wild consciousness appeared in the space-time continuum. So, guys, I'm reading the chat section, and Bon in the chat section says the future is greed and nuclear war. Hey, man, it's like the future is way superior than the human framework. Just think about all the children that haven't been born yet with totally different mindsets than all those people who are running the system currently. I'm telling you, human ideology gets replaced throughout history. You know what's funny? The future can't be greed and nuclear war, because if there is the end of existence, then there is no future to be anything. You know, there is this idea that when you are nothing, you can't lose anything. You can try this as a person, you know? I remember once I was in this situation, I don't remember who it was. It was a bunch of people. I was in this kind of like party moment, you know? And I could tell you, it was as if there was, sometimes you can see how the world wants something, you know? And when you don't want anything from the world, something strange happens. The lords of karma look at one another. It's like, okay, what do we do? This person doesn't want anything. Technically, they've done a lot of karmic stuff, but now they've stopped. There's literally the person's not a self, so what do we base their karma on? And your karma after yourself, your ideological self's filter, is actually the world. And if you align with the world, that doesn't mean you get enlightened. It just means you now can observe the stillness of your collective self. And then you require another meditation. But it's not called meditation at that point. It's experiential journey. You see, we're experienced tunnelers. Language is just the narrative, you know? Let me tell you what's going to happen. Instead of greed and nuclear war, the body dies after 100 years, by the way. What we are caring for to continue is the human vision. So even if there is nuclear war and greed, if we can build an interstellar city, then technically it's like the whole issue is that the last line of continuity is stopped. That means we don't want the universe to forget the human gene for now. That's the effort. You know, Hafez, the Sufi poet, again from 700 years ago. He says, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. A state of mind that has created its inefficiency earlier than its efficiency has failed from the beginning. This is why all those people that give a story of fear to the unknown, it, it's like a kid in a sandbox crying over the sandcastle breaking. I remember myself as a kid, like a very young kid. I have a twin brother, and I remember me and my twin brother, we were playing with Lego. And this was before any sort of care for who am I and all this. Usually it's like, I think after the age of 25, the question who am I becomes really interesting for you. I remember when we were playing with the Lego pieces, the character I would choose, the Lego character piece that I would choose to play with, I was that. Listen to what I'm saying here, guys. I was localized in where my attention was localized to the activity. We are motion when our eyes open. We are emotion when our eyes close. And sometimes I think emotion, could it be like a shorter version of saying electromagnetic motion? That what we think is emotion is that there's actually fields around us, and as these fields change, that's the emotion changing, not necessarily even relevant to what the person has been through. The thing is, if this is how you know it's an inefficient civilization, because it has convinced its members that it can't be efficient. the I would say the most excellent lie on earth, the most, when you look at, like, if you were to judge all the lies on this planet of that relate to the human being, the most, I would say, I won't say genius, but the most greatest lie is you can't. We are designed to progress and go forth. We are designed to build. And I, Mr. Within, I would say, will encourage, or I don't know, I feel people have to use the mind, and the mind can be used in two ways. Either you sit and you receive, or you move and you express. And if you move and you express, there is a vitality, there are rhythms that find you. I'm telling you, just like how you see a musician, just sometimes a prodigy is a person who naturally, without any other condition of reason, was drawn towards something. So think of a musician playing alone, and when they're playing alone, nobody's there, and they go into the most ultimate rhythm. I will tell you, I have given some talks that vocally, the way I had spoken in it was so incredible. Then I checked my phone and I realized the phone had stopped recording due to an error. So it was like literally a solo performance. It was a performance of the mind and body in front of the soul itself. the solar space. This is modern spirituality. You have a soul, space is also a body. That's it. That's the only update. Back in the day, we're like, you got a body, you know? And, our soul is in my body, like the spiritual person was like, yeah, brah, I'm a soul, what do you think I am then, like, oh, what do you think's here? But now, Mr. Within is saying, if we consider all of space as a body for attributeless attention, the Wright brothers flew in the outer realms. But way before the Wright brothers were born, the yogis and the mystics were flying in their inner realms. There's the story. These three generals are stationed at this mountain, and they're waiting, and their armies are there. And the three generals have sat at this table, this round table, and they are taking shots of vodka. They're drinking. Imagine it's like generals back in the day during wartime. So these generals are drinking vodka, you know, or just getting drunk. They're waiting for orders, so they're just waiting. Literally, they can't do anything until they get commands. And as they're sitting there, as they're drinking, suddenly they get to a point where their true natures kind of open up at the table. And what do you call it? One of the generals looks at the other general and says, "My men are so brave that none of your men." Guys, I think my ride is here. I'm joking. The logos, the pilot is got too many ideas on impact. Okay, hold on, guys. Back to the story. Um, so one of the generals looks at the other general and says, "My men are so brave that he commands one of his soldiers and he says, 'Soldier!' He's showing off his soldiers to the other generals. And the soldier comes and he says, 'Soldier, you see the other cliff? Jump from the edge of this cliff to the other side of the canyon.' And the soldier's like, 'Yes, sir.' And the soldier just runs, and it's insane. The soldier just runs off the cliff and jumps, and there's no way he can jump to the other side of the canyon, and he dies. And the general looks at the other generals, and he's like, that soldier knew he was gonna die, but he was so brave and loyal, that he did it anyways. And then there was the second general. Now they're drinking, there's more drinks into them, so there's more intensity at the table. And so the second general's like, that's nothing. Let me show you true bravery. And he says, soldier! And, a soldier runs up, you know, and the soldier says, yes, sir. And he says, soldier, you see that minefield? There was a minefield there. He says, go and dance on that minefield. And the soldier says, yes, sir. And the guy says, dance as if it's like your wedding day or something. This general. And the soldier goes and he closes his eyes, and on a minefield, he's dancing, and he hits one of the mines and he dies. And the general says, let me tell you what level of bravery that soldier had. He's showing off, and he says, that soldier planted all the mines in that field. He knew where all the mines were. But because he was dancing like a true dancer, that's how much bravery and loyalty he had. And the first general's like, holy shit, that's pretty creative. And then the third general's just drinking quietly. And the two generals, after they've done showing off to each other, they look at the third general. The two generals look at the. Sorry, guys, sometimes it's like I watch the film before I say it. In my inner watch the story. So, anyways, what happens is the two generals, they look at the third general. It's like, how about you? What about your soldiers? And the general's smart. Like, while the other two are drinking, other two are talking. This one's just drinking the alcohol that's left. Arrogantly smart. But so what happens is, the two generals look at the third one. It's like, you have to show off. Are you kidding me? You got to show off how brave your men are. Then the general's like, okay, they force him, the two generals. He's like, soldier, and his soldier comes. And the general's just drinking while he's even giving the command, He's like, he doesn't even care, like, the third general. And the third general's like, soldier, you see that waterfall? Like, there was a waterfall there. And he's like, jump into it, just dive into it like it's a swimming pool. And the soldier looks at the third general, and he's like, I'm not going to do anything stupid like that. It's like, doesn't even make sense. I'm going to die. Like, that's the most stupidest order I've ever heard. And the third general smiles and looks at the other two soldiers, and he says, that's true bravery. That's true bravery. Where the person used their intelligence. And all those people who think the future is like this post-apocalyptic outcome, that is not bravery. The bravery is to look at what's happening now. What's happening now is not suggesting a post-apocalyptic future. What's happening now is suggesting inefficiency now. That's it. So imagine person A is in the park, sitting. Person B comes out of nowhere and says to person A, you're the first letter of the alphabet, but you've embarrassed, imagine all the other letters of the alphabet are there. Person B, C, D, D, E, E. You know what I mean? So all the letters of the alphabet come to person A, all the person letters of the alphabet. And so person B is the leader of all the other ones. And person B is like, how dare you, person A, embarrass us, you're the first letter of the alphabet. You don't deserve to be the first letter of the alphabet, person A. And person A is just looking at all the letters of the alphabet, and he's like, you fools, you're each your own letter. But we just arrive in sequence. Do you see? So that's the whole point. Everybody is history's action. It's like everybody is technically writing experiential history. So, person A, this is the strength of your mind. When you realize nobody else has your eyes, there's a kind of smirk. You know, there's sometimes, it's like somebody has, it's like, let's say a setting where it's only person A and person B. Person B comes to person A, completely insults person A. It comes and says to person A, you're a failure. Now, what can person A do? Allow person B's inner realm language to become their own language, or person A could just realize that person has no idea who person A is. They think they know who person A is. This is why in the outer realms, only thing is respectful silence. If you can respect a person's silence, I'll tell you that's the backup system to the greed of civilization. Okay, this isn't on mute, is it? No. Okay. The future knows what the past does not. So the way I have a relationship, if I was to even say this with my future self, is that I am its memory. So all I know is how my future self, let's say my future self's future self wants my future self to make its memory. Imagine this. Imagine we had to go like some movies and narratives and media show. They portray the person has to go back in time to change what happened so the future isn't effed up, you know? So imagine a time traveler. Imagine we created a time machine. We went back to change the past. Let's say we went back to change a speech, a speech that was happening. And the issue was our time traveling technology wasn't that perfect, so we became invisible. So we were invisible. We were like a ghost we were like a time traveler that had managed to go to the past, but in order not to change the past, we were like a ghost in it, you know? So I would say ghost time, let's call this ghost time traveling. Ghosting in time traveling. Like in time traveling ideologies around the world, let's create this concept of ghosting where the person is technically going in the past, but they are not going into the past. Do you know what I mean? Their consciousness is. Attention, which is not an object, can't have karma. You know? So what does that mean? That means our mind has time traveled to the past in this thought experiment. And so imagine, what I'm trying to say is, imagine you were invisible to your past self and you were trying to change what your past self was about to say. So imagine your past self for a second just stopping what it's doing in life and just noticing what's going on in the moment. It is as reverent as there's as much reverence in it as that, I would say. There is a divinity that has no explanation. It is the explanation. That's what the pilots will come here. Like here's the thing: the future generations, all the children being born, I just see two categories: advanced communicators and pilots. Advanced communicators are, what do you call it? Like in an airplane, when you go on an airplane flight, there's stewardesses, right? The hostesses. The advanced communicators are those going up to people and saying apple juice or orange juice, you know? The pilots are those who are navigating the plane of existence. They are the you would say the Brahmins of novelty. That means the creative people on this planet, they are piloting the attention of the plane of existence, the explorer archetype. So pretty much the explorers are pilots, the compilers, you could say the hunters are pilots, the gatherers are advanced communicators. That means the advanced community. Here's the thing. This was the vision. You know how we have police now, and police are like it's such an incredible force that maintains the civility of society. Of course, people come in different, classifications. Like everybody's eyes are different. I would say if your invisible future self was trying to communicate to you now to change the future, you can't be yourself. The moment there is even another self, if the world is multidimensional, tip of the iceberg situation, that means even if the person considers past lives or future lives, they're considering past lives and future lives to the tip of the iceberg. So it's technically flawed from the beginning. I think true metaphysics is not avoiding physics. It is just running faster than it. Whether on an engine in a higher dimension or a story in a lower dimension. It's so phenomenal that, okay, sorry guys, I was just checking the sound of the environment. Guys, it's getting a bit cold, actually. I'm gonna relocate. I'll be back. So let's say there's a 10-minute intermission. Okay, so all right, guys, I'm back, and back to it. The future already knows who you are. I mean, at some point, I am going to go into a quote tunnel, but I want to say a bit more. I want to say that I remember hearing this lecture from Jordan Peterson where he had phrased it in such an incredible way. He said that we discovered the future. Just imagine the evolution of people, the evolution of this creature. We were actually all in the here and now. Like, for example, Eckhart Tolle in the New Age community says, come to the here and now, like the yogic mind centers through that. I would tell you, we were the here and now. The duality is the new thing. So this creature had a sense of its past, had a sense of where it was, but to plan for the future, to truly realize that the free will has wings behind the human being's eyes, that we can envision surpassing the content, the object-based content of this moment. Your mind can move in so many ways that matter will never know. Because matter only matters to matter. So pretty much this idea that we realized we can see ahead as a mind. For me, all of language again comes down to being a technology. And its usage is different. That means when a person comes to speak, their energy levels are a point to consider. Their state of mind, how concentrated the person feels, you know. Honestly, living life is really like driving. You see outside, but you make the decision from inside the vehicle. You see outside of the vehicle, the sensory perception, all the stuff outside of the vehicle is in your attention, but the decisions of what happens to the vehicle are being made from inside the vehicle. And similarly, we're this biological being receiving from outside our eyes, like the front view window, you know, the windshield. So through we are like the biological existence is like a body, and the eyes are like, again, the windshield. We're looking outside of the eyes, sensory perception entering, light entering our eyes. So that's pretty much the person looking outside of the vehicle and getting information. And then uh, as a ego, as a thought of ourself, as our name, as a subject, we're driving our objective existence as an unknown experiential subject that comes and goes, uh, because we sleep and wake up. To live, if you live as a body, death is your inspiration. Death inspires you, your mortality inspires you. But if you live as a mind, the eternity, the life inspires you. I will tell you, as a body, my body wants to always be in its comfort zone. It's pretty much like, it's not even, they say this notion of the comfort zone or whatever, it's like, it's not even that, temperature. A person's comfort zone is like a temperature they've gotten used to based on the type of ideological clothing they're wearing at the moment, right? Now, if the ideological clothing changes, the temperature of the moment, you can say, conceptually changes. That means let us create this concept for the first time of a temperature to philosophies. And that temperature suggests literally when you increase a substance temperature, it moves towards the gas state. The particles are too ambitious. It will be concluded that the task of the future is not to look at the past. If you know what it is, if this is something funny, but I thought right now, really, imagine the time traveler comes from the past and he comes to the person and he's like, yo, you got to change your behavior, man, or the future's going to be this intense place. And the person's like, buddy, you're from the future coming to the past. You should have used your time machine to go to your future. Do you know? The point is that if the future is looking at the past, then the past has never got into the future. But if we realize it's not a linearized time thing, that potentially in the future we are this collective intelligence beyond the dimension of time. The moment you're beyond time, you can move anywhere in time. Technically, we evoke time conceptually. So you have to say, what time is it? It's not something that the person naturally is holding that metric, you know? If our future is an ocean and our present is a river and our past was a drop, right now, in this river state, in this point in history where minds are roaming this earth, simply the rivers have to join and find a way to the ocean. That's it. That means even when I look at all the ideological institutions in the world, the biggest issue is that they are not updating. That means I can't tell you how many institutions are on this world not updating, choosing to fight the test of time, as if the purpose is to never change from the past. That's the issue with the belief. It slows you down. But when you realize that this life is not about belief or disbelief, that's a waste of time, whichever angle you look at it. That means I was like, oh my God, every atheist should thank God for their careers, you know? You know? So it's becoming something where it's this silly situation where enough pointing fingers at what language is the ultimate container of truth. Ah, I would simply say this. Before language, who were we? Gods, men, human story, human meaning, and all of this, it's phenomena in language. Do you see how simple we're all existing? We're just existing as a moment of attention. If the person becomes still and notices this and accepts this in a strangely unknown way, you suffering stops because there's nothing to lose when you accept your moment. Doesn't mean you accept the condition of, let's say, an inefficient condition in life. The whole point of a system is that sometimes I think when a system becomes cruel to its members, it's a sign that the civilization needs help. That's what it is. That means on some level, sure, it's so easy to think that this whole world is run by shadows. But you see that the shadow cannot exist without some sort of light. So the shadow will forever be interconnected to the light. It's just the duality of the stories we're telling. That means when someone says they can't do something, it's like, oh my God, that person just put a story like a box on their head. Holy shit. You know, it becomes... Terence McKenna, the scholar, he has this saying, he says, nobody knows enough to worry. And if you think about it, it's instead of worry, insert any other word there. Nobody knows enough. Once you realize that truth, there is no perfection to seek. There is maybe standards of advancement, but there isn't an ultimate perfection. It's like you don't want this life to be easy, too easy. Because if it's too easy, then you are not here. That's why the mind, it becomes something of access, where it's as if renunciation in the modern world doesn't mean ignoring the physical responsibility. It means renouncing how in one moment only one thought should be there. The future, if it's an ocean, it's here before we were. Imagine a drop in a river, they're all in the ocean. You could technically say there's endless drops in the ocean. You could say there's endless, based on the currents in the ocean, endless rivers in the ocean. You know? But there is one ocean. There is one existential activity, yet there is multiple ways that we can tune into its expression. So that's the thing. That's really the point, the value of realizing you're not just a thought, you're not just language. You're the mover of language to yourself, or as yourself. Now, I will be honest, sometimes when I share my science fiction with the audience, it's not that, I mean, sometimes I think about it, it's something like I've engineered into the story. Sometimes it's just a film. It's like I'm going about my day, just the thought occurs, what if this would happen, and then a film begins in the inner realms. Literally a film. Not like on a screen, but like a virtual reality. It's as if our minds are what we feel is our mind, or where thought and memory and imagination is occurring. That is technically a prototype pioneering cyberspace. That's literally like us as if having a linguistics existence in a simulation, the linguistic simulation. Language is simulating meaning. If language wasn't there, everything is in silence. If movement wasn't there, everything would be in stillness. You can't even think about purpose or position even. There was this sage named Osho, and there was a quote from him. He said, what did he say? He said, life has no purpose, life is the purpose. As if he was saying it's not per se something that you have to contain in a certain ideological way. It's something that is being, regardless of what you do. So if you treat it on a level of how you're being, I mean, when I look at the life purpose of a plant, it's just to grow in its world. When I look at the life purpose of the human being physically, yeah, just be your. It's like we are a part of this event. Something I will tell you that really has changed uh, my view on people is that I can tell you, like, it's like, think of every person having an unknown mind. Literally behind every person's eyes you've seen, literally starting from where their eyes are, from behind it there is a world there. We are technically walking portals. But guys, I want to see if I can find the story that I remember writing in 2017. It's called Lords of Chaos. It's this novel that I never finished writing. I mean, it's pretty much, it's close. I mean, maybe in like a couple of months it'll be out. But if I can find this, it was one of the most creative science fiction inner events. Sorry guys, I tried. I can't find the thing. You know, it could be possible that in the future they have no concept of future. It could be something where we're sliding between dimensions like a sine wave. You know, back in the day, the world was way more multidimensional. It wasn't that they saw you in one sense of time. I mean, you could say even back in ancient Greece, they were like, okay, do the gods experience time? Like philosophers would have wondered about that. And so, because gods couldn't die, it was a suggestion that there was something beyond time and a timeless abode of continuous existence. They asked this deity and archetype of the perfect man in Vedic thought, Rama. They come to Rama and one guy comes and says, Rama, why do we have to work? Why do we have to work for enlightenment in human life? Why? Why do we have to do all this stuff? And Rama says, you don't realize beings in lesser dimensions, they are not evolved yet to even ask the question. It's as if they are in loop programs of nature, kind of lesser hells, you know? Like imagine a creature climbing, trying to get out of a hole, keeps climbing to the top, keeps falling down, keeps climbing to the top, keeps falling down. There's so many lesser levels in the human position where they are looping. They're evolutionary looping. Literally, they can't surpass an attention beyond how the environment is moving their attention. You know, the human being did that somehow. You know, it's like we really, if we were to clap for our ancestors, we couldn't stop clapping. And you know what it feels like? It feels like our whole intelligence as a being on this planet, at least to me, it feels like imagine a phone where you don't know what its content is. Like you see the phone screen, but you don't see the files in the phone or what applications are running. Maybe you're aware of 3 different applications. But to truly go and comprehend the true uh, depths of this being, you know, it means at some point you have to become a solo explorer of your own intelligence. There's no other way, really. You know, nobody can tell you more about your eyes than your own eyes. And this doesn't mean like the person shouldn't ask for help, of course, you know. I mean, just because we have to be strong, it doesn't mean people have to just go through things alone. I'm speaking to an audience who is wondering about the novelty and new dimensions of experience, because experience is tends to be it's kind of solo, you know. It's as if like we don't realize how much of the moment we're actually considering ourselves as a subject, and there's so many ways the moment is existing beyond the archetype in place. I think now is a good time to go into a quote tunnel before I end off. There we go. So guys, a quote tunnel is pretty much I read a bunch of quotes just to see how people back in the day they actually saw the world, how their inner realms had perceived the world and managed to express it somehow. You know, it's not that when a person says something, they are the thing they say, but it is true that they see what they say. Abraham Lincoln says the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Malcolm X says the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Nikola Tesla, let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future for which I have really worked is mine. You know, this is Nikola Tesla's response to people asking him, how do you feel about people stealing your designs? Because pretty much somebody stole his designs. Like stole his notebooks or something. And Nikola Tesla looked at the interviewer. I think I saw. I don't know if there's a. Actually, I don't know if this was an interview, but it was like the idea is like instead of everybody wanting to be followers in a system to find the truth, they have to generate truth. That means think of it this way: that your ancestors did not sacrifice everything for you to be here to just copy them, like. It's novelty. Nikola Tesla is pretty much saying it doesn't matter. Everything in this world is temporary. The new that advances civilization, go for that. You know. That means sometimes you have to feed the hungry. You know. Jane Addams says America's future will be determined by the home and the school. The child becomes largely what he is taught. Hence, we must watch what we teach and how we live. Yeah, Lao Tzu also, this Chinese philosopher, mentioned that if there's peace in the home, there will be peace in the world. Um, John Bon Jovi says, map out your future, but do it in pencil. The road ahead is as long as you make it worth the trip. Okay, this quote site is not satisfactory, guys, hold on. There we go. Coco Chanel. Elegance is not the prerogative of those who have just escaped from adolescence, but of those who have already taken possession of their fruit. Walt Whitman. The future is no more uncertain than the present. James Baldwin. There is never a time in the future in which we will work out our salvation. The challenge is in the moment. The time is always now. Friedrich Nietzsche. The future influences the present just as much as the past. Yeah. Winston Churchill. If we open a quarrel between past and present, we shall find that we have lost the future. There's another, I don't know why there's 3 Winston Churchill quotes like after one another. But the other quote is, it is always wise to look ahead, but difficult to look further than you can see. Oh, actually, there was only 2 Winston Churchill quotes. The next one is Marcus Aurelius. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. And if anybody got a deja vu from that quote, it's because it's written in the description of the video. You know? Oscar Wilde says, the only difference between the saint and the sinner is that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. Barack Obama says, the future rewards those who press on. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm going to press on. Yeah, guys, pretty much what else can you do with the future? You can just move towards it. You can either build it, which is another way of moving towards it, but I'll say, like, check this out. Desmond Tutu. Without forgiveness, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Without forgiveness, there's no future. William Wordsworth. Life is divided into three terms: that which was, which is, and which will be. Let us learn from the past to profit by the present, and from the present to live better in the future. Jack Welch. Control your own destiny or someone else will. This is so true. This is what I mean by, like, in one talk I said it in this way. It's no longer to be or not to be. It's to move or to be moved in this life. That means if you utilize this privilege that your free will and conscious mind after 4 billion years of evolution has provided you with, like when you realize this opportunity, then it doesn't become about, okay, I want to get out of this world, I want to escape the illusion. It's as if love and non-duality is always there. Non-duality is truth. Truth can't go anywhere. The illusion was never there. Do you see what I mean? It's like truth is always here, illusion is never there. If we don't have this mentality, the concept of truth cannot exist, because we access things as moments. So that means one thing the person would know: if there is a truth in this world, it would be a moment. It is accessed as a moment. George Orwell says, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. James Joyce. I am tomorrow or some future day what I established today. I am today what I established yesterday or some previous day. This guy really likes the word day. He really likes the day. Albert Einstein. The distinction between the past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. There we go. Now, a home run from Einstein, Who says Albert Einstein didn't play philosophical baseball? This. Here, guys, I'm going to share the quote here. Confucius. If you think in terms of a year, plant a seed. If in terms of 10 years, plant trees. If in terms of 100 years, teach the people. Albert Einstein also says, I never think of the future, it comes soon enough. Niels Bohr. Prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. Elon Musk. The future of humanity is going to bifurcate in two directions. Either it's going to become multiplanetary, or it's going to remain confined to one planet, and eventually there's going to be an extinction event. There was this quote, I don't know who said it, but it was like, we were born on Earth, but we weren't meant to die here. Alan Watts says, I have realized that the past and future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. Alan Watts says, no work or love will flourish out of guilt, fear, or hollowness of heart, just as no valid plans for the future can be made by those who have no capacity for living now. Arthur C. Clarke, this is the first age that's ever paid much attention to the future, which is a little ironic since we may not have one. Yeah, that could be kind of hilarious. Like, I'm talking so much about the future, but yeah, it's totally a possibility that the species might fold the hand it has. It's been dealt, you know? I'm saying we should go all in. That's the whole point of life. It's like a stage. It's like literally like an existential stage for the experiencer that's acting in it, you know? We are not thoughts. We are aware of them, though, coming and going. Oh, man. Seneca says, enjoy present pleasures in such a way as not to injure future ones. Wow. That's they should write that on university walls. Okay, so just a few more quotes, guys, and the airplane will soon land. Sai Baba. Sai Baba. Yeah, that's just the name. I don't know. I think that's the title. What matters is to live in the present, live now, for every moment is now. It is your thoughts and acts of the moment that create your future. The outline of your future path already exists, for you created its pattern by your past. Oh, yeah. When I went to India, uh, in Rishikesh, I had written a lot of like poetic books and whatnot. I went there for 2 months in India and stayed in an ashram. There was a person, I asked him, what is all this creative outburst that I've experienced in my life? Now, I had my own view on it, but I asked the guy, and the guy was literally, it was like a movie. He was like, Sanskara, you know, and I was like, and I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, it's impressions. So you see, there's a view of karma that it's an accumulation, and in this accumulation, it's like if you identify as a small thing, it's like a leaf being moved by the river. The world's moving you. But if you identify as the river is moving itself, and that is the superior state of man's mind that an advanced civilization is calling for. Nostradamus. Sooner and later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances, for as the moon is thus led by its angel, the heavens draw near to the balance. Okay, Nostradamus was tripping, yeah. Honestly, guys, Nostradamus, I don't know how many people know. He's this French, I would say, uh, future predictor, you know, fortune teller to some degree, but a very able literary mind simultaneously. I would say it's some human beings, they may not identify as philosophers to themselves, but their intent towards the world is philosophical, you know? When you think about the future, you're in your inner realms instantly. When you think about your past, you are not in your, it's like you're in the present and in the inner realms. Because usually we think about time travel either from the present to the past, or from the future to the past, or from the present to the future. But how many people think about time traveling to the past from the past? There's no time. Graham Graham Greene says there's always one moment in childhood when the door opens and lets the future in. Elon Musk says if you get up in the morning and think the future is going to be better, it is a bright day. Otherwise, it's not. Yeah, if you don't see a potential to your own free will, it's like, then why are you calling it free will? You know? It's like, do we have free will only to realize we don't have free will? You know, it's like, what is this? Blaise Pascal. If we examine our thoughts, we shall find them always occupied with the past and the future. Maya Angelou. Prejudice is a burden that confuses the past, threatens the future, and renders the present inaccessible. Marcus Aurelius. Here is the rule to remember in the future. When anything tempts you to be bitter, not this in quotations, this is a misfortune, but to bear this with worthily, to bear this worthily is good fortune. I think he's pretty much saying play your part in nature. Eleanor Roosevelt says the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, because the beauty is the awakening of their dreams. And there's this quote from, okay, I'm going to read actually one. So, all sciences are now under the obligation to prepare the ground for the future task of the philosopher, which is to solve the problem of value, to determine the true hierarchy of values. Advanced civilization. Wow. See, even Friedrich Nietzsche saw this far. Honestly, if people were to ask me, I feel Friedrich Nietzsche had seen further ahead than even we are alive now. There's some philosophy. Socrates is just literally, it's as if like some philosophers are wonders of not like architecture, like not like pyramids of Egypt. They are wonders of how far the human eyes opened. Guys, in this quote, Friedrich Nietzsche is literally saying that the sciences grounded us. So science is preparing the ground. Now there needs to be, science is like the airport platform, the ground where the airplane is. Okay? And now the task of the future philosopher is in updating the language that the scientist uses. So the scientist is providing accurate information, and he's like, all right, philosophers, go and find that hierarchical system that can somehow balance the irrational with the rational. Do you know what that means? That means if language wasn't here, we're all human beings trying to advance. So if we build something advanced, we win. The species wins. If we checkmate the universal circumstance. If we quickly find some sort of allegiance to the new ethos, which I'm telling you, that new ethos of the future is the advanced civilization. It's, if you think about it, even as a pure materialist, you think about it, 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. The only thing the greatest game left to play is the advanced civilization. Once in my inner realms, I saw a golden cube, small golden cube, hovering in front of my forehead. Playfully, you could say it was a visualization, a moment's extraction of vision. And I thought of this sort of thing of the golden truth of the mind being right there in front of it. So many sounds in this world. So many movements in this world. As Terence McKenna was saying, gene swarming is taking place on the surface of the planet. What are the efforts of the individual? You see, it's like we are temporary members of a civilization that its vision is much more eternal than us. That means you can say the only reason we are all here is because everybody's ancestor wanted something to continue on. Sometimes I feel human beings are building everything is man-made, even the idea of man. And then there's times where I feel it's like maybe human beings are the brush and language is the paint. And the true hand is the hand of nature. The presence of the Gaian mind beyond language. The shamanism that was not afraid of silence, that was not afraid of the void. Because how can you be afraid of something that is empty? How can emptiness be afraid? We are afraid of the potentials that we see that are probable, but we don't attempt. Because if you think of yourself as an object, what's the point of doing anything? There's no point. But if you see yourself as a mind, suddenly you see the value of the human effort. So it is now time. It doesn't matter if you believe in the idea of the soul or not. The point is to live as conscious minds, because it's just the opportunity. Victor Hugo says, "What is history? An echo of the past in the future, a reflex from the future on the past." Thomas Edison says, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet and the cause and prevention of disease." Richard Feynman says we are at the very beginning of time for the human race. It is not unreasonable that we grapple with problems, but there are tens of thousands of years in the future. Our responsibility is to do what we can, learn what we can, improve the solutions, and pass them on. And Charles Darwin, how paramount the future is to the present when one is surrounded by children. And Buckminster Fuller, we are called to be architects of the future, not its victims. Wow, I got goosebumps. Buckminster Fuller is one of the greatest designers on this planet. He's pretty much the Gandalf of all designers in the world, you know? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode has been helpful, and much blessings and namaste. And one thing they would say in the tech sector, the best way to predict the future is to build it, and you have to move yourself as awareness, as mind, and then in the conditions of form navigate. So don't be afraid of how unknown you are to yourself. As you accept it, then you get to see in how many other ways your senses are active, and how many other ways actually you are being in the moment, but you don't realize. As long language is up to the language threshold is where from the tip of the iceberg it goes down, and we can't see anymore. We can't speak about. So you can say if the person's content with the unknown, that's a sign that they are beyond. They are no longer. They are aware of themselves beyond the language threshold. Beyond, they are aware of the experiencer in a way that can't be contained in language. And so, as Buckminster Fuller says, let us be architects of the future. Who has time to be a victim when you're a temporary being? And of course, on a level of design, all are free. But when stories and emotions come in, wars begin. So be careful, whoever you are in this world, to navigate selflessly through design. If there is a need, allow there to be self to. Pretty much I'm saying be your whole moment, not just an identification with one thing in your moment, you know? The cool thing about the wisdom of the sages was that even if it was past or not, it was eternal. You know, that means it's like, you know, I'm not worried about existence. Existence is going to continue. I'm worried about, not even worried, but way more concerned about human experience as we ride the waves of time. Pretty much what it is it's like feeling as if like the only thing you have ever known is sinking. So the only action is there by the design of how the world is moving. Some things that there's some secrets that have nothing to do. It doesn't matter if you have it's not even for human ears. It's just moments, glimpses of how there is, you could say, rhythms of information, like winds of information that hit people. We are not conscious of it, but it is happening. That means outer space is not empty. It's like an ocean, and we're like the fish, the currents. If we go into the current, the fish is like, oh my God, am I like eternity right now? No, the fish is in an eternal current. Attention has no owner. Eternity is a concept. Beyond concept, there's no thingness up to it, no shape to it. It is the mover of the shape. Energy doesn't die, but man's face does change throughout time. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Blessings.